Imagine your ancestors found a mushroom that changed everything. Not changed their mood for an evening. Changed their species. Changed the trajectory of the human mind itself. That's the claim at the center of one of the strangest ideas in all of evolutionary speculation. It's called the Stone Ape Theory. And before we go any further, here's what you need to know up front. This is not accepted science. Mainstream anthropologists and evolutionary biologists overwhelmingly reject it. There is no fossil evidence, no genetic evidence, and no archaeological evidence that supports it as fact. What you're about to hear is a fringe hypothesis, proposed by one man, embraced by a subculture, and dismissed by the scientific establishment. So why talk about it at all? Because it's a fascinating window into how humans try to explain the biggest mystery in our own story. Here's the mystery. Around 2 million years ago, something strange happened to the genus Homo. Brain size began expanding at a pace unlike almost anything else in the fossil record. Within roughly 1.5 million years, brain volume nearly tripled. Paleoanthropologists have measured this through cranial capacity in fossils, using skull volume as a proxy for brain size, and the data is clear. The increase is real. What's still debated, even among mainstream scientists, is exactly why it happened so fast. This is the gap that the Stone Ape Theory tries to fill. The idea was proposed in the 1990s by Terence McKenna, an ethnobotanist and writer fascinated by psychedelic plants. McKenna's hypothesis, sometimes called the stoned ape hypothesis, suggested that early hominids in the grasslands of East Africa encountered psilocybin-containing mushrooms growing in cattle dung. Psilocybin is the psychoactive compound found in certain mushroom species. The same compound responsible for the perceptual and cognitive effects associated with modern psychedelic use. McKenna proposed that low doses of these mushrooms might have sharpened visual acuity, helping early humans hunt more effectively. He suggested that higher doses might have catalyzed dramatic leaps in language, abstract thinking, and even the emergence of human self-awareness. In McKenna's version of the story, this wasn't a metaphor. It was a literal evolutionary mechanism. Mushrooms, he argued, were a kind of catalyst, a psychoactive nudge that pushed the hominid brain across a threshold it couldn't have crossed on its own. It's a vivid image, a small band of early hominids on the savanna, encountering something growing out of dung beside a herd of grazing animals, and something inside their minds beginning to shift. But here's where the theory runs into serious trouble. Evolutionary change at the level McKenna describes does not work through a single psychoactive experience. No matter how intense, genetic traits are passed to offspring through inherited DNA, not through altered perception during one individual's lifetime. A mushroom trip, however vivid, does not rewrite the genome. For brain size and cognitive capacity to change across a population over generations, you need selective pressure acting on heritable traits, not a transient chemical experience, however profound it might have felt to the individual having it. Paleoanthropologists studying this period point to a very different, much better supported set of explanations. Researchers including Richard Wrangham at Harvard have proposed that the controlled use of fire and the cooking of food dramatically increased the caloric and nutritional yield of early human diets, freeing up the metabolic energy needed to fuel a larger, more expensive brain. Brains are extraordinarily costly tissue to maintain. Other researchers point to social complexity, the cognitive demands of tracking relationships, alliances, and reputations within larger and larger groups, as a major driver of cognitive expansion. Still others point to dietary shifts toward meat and marrow, accessed through tool use and scavenging, as critical sources of the fats and proteins brain tissue requires. None of these explanations require a single mushroom encounter. They require generations. They require selective pressure. They require the slow, unglamorous mechanics of evolution working over hundreds of thousands of years. There's also a basic evidentiary problem. There is no fossil or archaeological evidence that early hominids were even regularly consuming psilocybin mushrooms. McKenna's hypothesis was built largely on speculation about plausible ancient environments and behavior, not on physical evidence recovered from any site. Compare this to the kind of evidence anthropologists do have for early hominid diets: isotopic analysis of fossilized teeth. For example, which can reveal what an individual actually ate by analyzing the chemical signatures left behind in tooth enamel. That kind of evidence exists for things like meat consumption and plant foraging. It does not exist for mushroom use. So why has the idea persisted for decades? Despite this? Partly because it's a genuinely compelling story. It offers a single dramatic turning point in a narrative that's otherwise frustratingly gradual and hard to visualize. Human evolution, in the mainstream account, doesn't have one cinematic moment. It has thousands of generations of incremental pressure. The Stone Ape Theory gives people something more satisfying, an origin event. A spark. It also taps into a much older human instinct, the idea that altered states of consciousness reveal something true and hidden about reality. An idea found across countless cultures and belief systems throughout history, long before McKenna ever proposed his version of it. And it's worth saying plainly, this fascination with explaining the human mind through dramatic, singular causes isn't unique to McKenna. Throughout the history of science, big unanswered questions have repeatedly attracted bold, simple, story-shaped answers, long before the messier and more complicated truth could be fully worked out. So where does this leave us? The Stone Ape Theory remains, at best, an interesting thought experiment, and at worst, a popular myth mistaken for science by people encountering it secondhand online. The actual story of how the human brain grew so large, so quickly, is still being pieced together by paleoanthropologists, geneticists, and archaeologists working with real fossils, real isotopic data, and real comparative studies across species. It's a slower story, a less mystical one, but it's the one supported by evidence. You came into this expecting a single, electric moment that changed everything. What you're left with instead is something more honest. Your mind wasn't switched on by a mushroom in the grass. It was built, slowly, generation after generation, by forces far less dramatic and far more real.